Well everyone, here we are. Just a little over a week until Season 15 drops for Destiny 2. And what better way to celebrate than taking a look at every single thing that we know about this upcoming season thus far. Today we're going to be talking about a wide variety of topics, including crossplay, the Trials rework, the new Vanguard reputation system, and much more. I'll have timestamps down below so you guys can skip around to some specific juicy details if you'd like. Before we jump into the video though, I'd just like to ask that if you enjoyed the video today, feel free to slap the ever-living shit out of that like button. And if you'd like to see more from me in the future, lightly tap, very lightly, that subscribe button. Other than that, my G Fuel code, CODENUT, is 30% off on the website right now for those guys that care. We donate all proceeds made with my code to St. Jude Children's Hospital and all that jazz, and shout out to Efren on Twitter for tweeting me his massive order the other day. Now, without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into this because we got a lot of stuff to cover. First up, I want to talk about the new Vanguard reputation system that's coming into play at the start of the new season. According to Bungie, the Vanguard will be added to the Gambit and Crucible rep system that we've had these past 2 seasons, but they're also making some larger scale changes to improve upon them as a whole, while also adding Vanguard to the mix. Some of those changes include retiring the names of Infamy and Valor, and just referring to them as Gambit and Crucible Reputation. They're also making some changes to allow us to rank up Reputation quicker on average, and as a result, they're removing the Reputation bonus that bounties give, which I'm gonna be honest, kinda makes me sad as it made bounties a bit more incentivizing, but that's neither here nor there. They're also removing the win streak bonus in exchange for an activity streak bonus, which is based on how long you've spent in the playlist and not how many wins in a row that you've gotten in Gambit or Crucible, for example. Now, there's 2 things about these activity streaks, one good and one bad. The good thing is that these streaks don't require you to stay in the playlist 24/7 to benefit from. So you're going to be able to leave the queue, go to the tower or helm, decrypt engrams, get bounties, etc., and then hop back in with no worries without your streak ending. Think of this more as like a time limit that starts whenever you leave the playlist, and if you're away for too long you'll lose your streak, but going to the tower and doing anything like that and coming back, you'll have plenty of time to do. Now, the bad thing about the system that I don't really care for is that this system isn't adopting one of the greatest features that Destiny 1 had, and that's having an increase to the loot gain that you get the longer that you're on an activity streak. For those that don't know, the activity streaks were actually a part of Destiny 1's Vanguard strikes, and the longer that you played, the more reputation you got, and the higher chance you had for strike-specific loot. This absolutely should carry over into D2, as I've been having so many issues getting a God rolled bottom dollar, frozen orbit, or another royal entry, and this improvement would help greatly with that, especially seeing as we'll be seeing more playlist weapons added to the loot pool whenever the new season releases. Now, taking a look at the Vanguard side of things, specifically with this whole reputation stuff, Bungie says we'll be able to earn rep via strikes, nightfalls, and battlegrounds, and for Nightfall specifically, we'll be able to earn bonus rep for completing one with a platinum rating as opposed to bronze. So it sounds like Nightfalls or even GM farming would be a great way to get your reputation up as long as you're killing your champions. The last thing that Bungie had to say about the reputation system is that they're going to be including ritual weapons in their ornaments as part of the reputation rewards. So instead of doing a quest at the beginning of the season to get the ritual weapon, you'll just level up your Vanguard, Crucible, Gambit, whatever you want, and earn it that way, and that's going to be the same for ornaments as well. Now, moving on over from the reputation rework, let's go ahead and talk about the new Nightfall loot structure, and we're also going to be talking about the Conqueror title rework that Bungie's been working on. So, as we all know, the current Nightfall loot structure has been Plug 1, Hung Jury, Yuzume, and then finally Pally, Swarm, and Shadow Price all in at once on the same week together. So we've had, 1 weapon each for 3 weeks, and then 3 weapons at one time for the 4th week. But next season, Bungie will be changing the loot structure to be 2, 2, 2, and 2. For example, week 1 would have something like Shadow Price Hung Jury, week 2 would be Palindrome Yuzume, and so on. So there would be 2 earnable Nightfall weapons per week, rotating on a 4-week cycle or a 1-month cycle. Now, unfortunately, with the way that Nightfalls and GMs currently work, even at Grandmaster difficulty, you're not guaranteed a Nightfall weapon once you complete your Nightfall, and this adds RNG on top of your RNG when it comes to bagging yourself a God roll for the specific weapon that you want. Hopefully they'll implement something to combat this issue. Now, Bungie, when speaking on the loot structure, also let us know of 2 weapons that we'll be getting next season for the Nightfalls in the form of the Comedian Vanguard Shotgun and the Hot Head Rocket Launcher. future. Now, I'm not a big PvP guy because honestly, I'm just waiting on Halo Infinite, you know what I'm saying? So all I can really say about the Comedian is that it's going to be trash in PvE because it's not a slug shotgun, but keep your eye on it if you want a good Crucible shotgun because there are chances that this will be a good one to use. Now, the Hothead, on the other hand, has the potential to be the best rocket in the game. Not only will it have an adept variant since it's a Nightfall weapon, but if it comes as a precision frame, aka rockets with built-in tracking, we could have a top tier option on our hands if the perks are good. Now, moving on from Nightfall reward stuff, Bungie ended up commenting on the whole gilding Conqueror debacle, where people are pretty mad because whenever you guild Conqueror, you're pretty much already at the end of the season, meaning that you don't really get to keep the guild for all that long. Now, to combat this, Bungie is allowing us to run every single GM Nightfall once each whenever Grandmasters drop in order for us to guild the seal right as GMs release and not 6 weeks after the fact once they all cycle through. This is good for those of you guys that care about having gold letters under your name, but also kinda bad as Bungie will no longer allow us to pick whatever GM we want and farm it for the final few weeks of the season. Although when GMs like Inverted Spire and Lake of Shadows exist, I can kinda understand the change. Now, moving on over from the Nightfall loot, let's go ahead and talk about some new mods, mod nerfs, and mod buffs. First, let's take a look at what next season's champion mods are going to be. Here we have 5 of the next season's mods, with the 6th being teased as a sword mod by Bungie. But as we can see, we're going to be getting anti-area auto rifle back, so no complaints there. We also have Overload Bow, which is by far the best overload mod in the game, whenever you're using things like explosive tip arrows or Le Monarch. We also have Unstop Sidearm, which is irrelevant, so go ahead and, use Unstop Pulse instead. And we also have Unstop Fusion and Linear Fusion, which we may see some usage with weapons like Jotun or maybe Arbalest. We'll just have to wait and see how the meta is going to be. Now, aside from that, we actually have a mod being removed from the game next season in the form of Traction, as Bungie will be adding options into the UI to basically do what Traction did for console players, so it really won't be missed overall. With the removal of this mod though, we'll also be getting a new mod in its place in the form of Holster, as well as some changes to existing mods too. Those changes include ammo finders now increasing ammo drop chance when you get kills with the primary weapon, and scavengers no longer stacking with each other. Now, the new mod in question is basically Reconstruction as a mod. It'll slowly auto-load your weapons when stowed, bullet by bullet, however it will not work on weapons with single-shot magazines, but it can also stack with itself if you're trying to load something like a machine gun really quickly, so that's very nice. We're also going to be seeing some buffs to some of the elemental well mods in the game, and I'm not entirely sure if this is going to make me use them, but they're buffs nonetheless, as well as we also have some Warmind Cell mod nerfs. Now, I've seen a lot of people freaking out about these Warmind Cell nerfs, basically saying that they're completely not worth using anymore, and I completely disagree. Despite the reduction in their range and damage, with global reach, I'm still going to be able to deal damage 16 meters out from where I popped my cell, and that's still a massive amount of distance to be damaging and killing ads from, especially whenever I only need to shoot one little ball to get damage on multiple enemies. 9 times out of 10, I still think you're going to be better off when running Warmind cells rather than not running them, and we're not seeing any nerfs to Warmind's protection or Power of Rasputin, and those are meta tier cell mods as is. I think the main takeaway here is that we'll see less effectiveness out of the Rage of the Warmind and Wrath of Rasputin combo, where your Warmind cells can make Warmind cells, since we'll be seeing a reduction in damage, but other than that, I'll still be rocking these bad boys as they're still better than not having them. And for the people in the comments that are going to say, well, I'd rather run Charged with Light, why not run both? Because you absolutely can, and I absolutely do. Now, moving on from mods, let's talk about Destiny's upcoming crossplay system, and I'll try and keep this brief as I'm pretty sure all of us know at least the basics of how this is going to work at this point. Now, to accomplish crossplay and to unify everyone across all platforms, when you log in, you'll be given a Bungie name that's based off the name you already have when you log in. Now this Bungie name will stick with you regardless of the platform you play on. So if your Bungie name is Big Dick Dylan, when you log into Destiny on your Xbox, regardless of your Xbox name, people will see you as Big Dick Dylan to prevent confusion when switching platforms for other players. Alongside this Bungie name system, we'll also be getting a search bar in our roster so we can look up the Bungie name of players, but also a proper invite menu where you can see Fireteam invite, Bungie friend request, as well as clan invites. This way, if you play on Steam for example, you obviously can't send somebody a Steam invite if they're on PlayStation, so you just look up their Bungie name from the roster and you can invite them to your Fireteam, clan, or friend them from there. Now, when talking about matchmaking as far as crossplay goes, for PvE, pretty much everything goes. Whether you're on PC, console, or Stadia, whatever the hell that is, you'll be able to match with and play with each other no matter what. Now, as far as matchmaking is concerned for PvP, PC players will match PC players, console players will match console players, and Stadia players, and the player pools will only mix if you're running a Fireteam with both console and PC players. So if you're trying to crossplay on PlayStation with your Xbox buddies, you won't have to worry about playing cheaters on PC because Bungie still doesn't know what an anti-cheat is to this day. Now, speaking of PvP, let's talk a little bit about the new Iron Banner content that we'll be seeing come next season. Bungie actually surprised me a little bit here, I'm not gonna lie. We're gonna actually be getting not only 2 brand new weapons next season, but also a completely new armor set as well. That armor set is called the Iron Forerunner set, and these pieces of armor actually come with the Iron Lord's Pride intrinsic perk, which says the more pieces of this set that you wear, the higher the chance of getting an enhancement prism at the end of an Iron Banner match you will have, which I think we can all agree that we'd rather it be something like an Iron Banner loot drop chance instead, but it's awesome to see intrinsic perks make an appearance on armor in this game, so I'm definitely not complaining here. The sky's the limit at this point. Now, aside from that, taking a look at the weapons, we have ourselves the new sidearm known as the Peace Bond sidearm, which I'll just say it now, probably never going to use it, and a pulse rifle known as Forge's Pledge, which I'm super excited to know about in terms of archetype and the element. Now, while still on the topic of PvP, let's go and segue on over to Trials of Osiris and talk about the rework that we got coming our way. Now, what leads me to believe the rework is 100% happening next season is Joe Blackburn's massive Twitter thread about PvP not too long ago, where he ended up saying next season you'll continue to see this effort with not only changes to 3-peaking, but also what the team has been planning for the revamp of Trials. He then says to tune into the reveal of the Witch Queen / new season on the 24th for more info. This combined with the fact that according to Bungie, we'll be seeing a Trials of Osiris rank system next season, leads me to believe that this is part of the major rework. But aside from 3-peaking being disabled in Trials ranks, what else do we have to look forward to as far as the rework goes? Well, Bungie has gone on to say that they want to improve the overall health of Trials and its matchmaking by incentivizing more people to interact with the mode regardless of skill level. They also say that they want to rebuild the reward structure to encourage players to stick through a card longer, and they want to make an incentive for players to keep on pushing throughout a card after a loss to get those higher tier rewards. Lastly, they say they want to try and implement some sort of way for solo players to regularly partake in Trials, and from the sounds of it, it sounds fantastic. But words are words at the end of the day.
Trials is back, and it's pretty insane.
So I'll be waiting to see some action before passing judgment on whether or not this is all a good thing. Now, moving on over from PvP, let's talk about a more general topic, the light subclass and sandbox changes, and boy oh boy, there are a lot of them. Most of the info I'm going to be going over is from this TWAB in particular, and I'll be leaving a link in the description for those of you guys that want to read every single detail, but I'm going to be going over the points that I think are most important, as this video would be over an hour long if I covered every last bullet point, so without further delay, let's go ahead and knock this out. First up, we're going to be getting new keybinds for different types of melees. We'll now be able to purposely melee with our ability, or with our ability charged, purposely melee without it in any situation that we're in. So if you find yourself accidentally throwing things like Celestial Fire or Hunter Knives without meaning to, this change is going to be for you so that you can stop doing that. Now next up, sliding is going to be getting a nerf. Whenever you do slide, you're going to be getting less stability, an increase in shotgun spread, and an increase in flinch as well. This is mainly going to affect my PvP boys, so sound off in the comments. And speaking of PvP, the rally barricade will actually be seeing a buff, and it looks to be mainly for PvP purposes, as it increases stability, range, and decreases flinch. I can't really see anybody using this any more than they already do in PvE, so let's go ahead and move on. Next up, Word of Dawn will be getting a nerf, as it'll take increased damage from bosses, and this is going to scale with the owner's resilience stat, making resilience a more viable stat to spec into for the future. And similarly, Well of Radiance will be seeing the same kind of change, and also some added PvP usage, which is always nice to see. Now speaking of PvP, Top Tree Dawn will be seeing some major changes in the form of its Celestial Fire and Icarus Dash usability, so for all my PvP folk, let me know yet again in the comments how you feel about these nerfs. And lastly, going to PvE, Nova Warp is getting a massive damage increase to PvE enemies, and so is the handheld Supernova, with it dealing 100% more damage than before, which is just outright insane to think about. Now, like I said, those weren't all of the subclass and sandbox changes, but those were the ones that stood out to me specifically, so let's go ahead and move on to the other stuff in the video. Let's talk about weaponry for a bit, and man, do we got some spicy stuff to talk about. First up, Bungie precedes this by saying they have more changes than usual coming in this season overall, and then give us a preview as to what these changes are. First up, we got one that's incredibly spicy. Next season, we'll be getting our hands on legendary Stasis weapons for both the energy and power slots, finally making Stasis a proper element inside of Destiny 2. I'm super excited to see how these function as a result, and I can't wait to get some God rolls in my hand when the new season launches. Next up, Bungie dropped another bombshell on us by mentioning that there's going to be a pretty substantial fusion rifle rework coming next season, and while we don't have details on the specifics as of yet, I'm sure we will very soon. Bungie also talks about how strong Anarchy has been and how long it's been a great option for most activities in PvE, and they're deciding to hit it with a sizable nerf come next season. They also say that they want to give more of a reason for players to use exotic primaries and high-end content, and they have changes coming to help with that as well. They then talk about some major buffs to the damage and functionality of hand cannons, scouts, and machine guns in PvE. And if you're wondering which ones you should be getting your hands on, I have a whole video of that on the channel already that you can check out. But regardless though, I'm super happy that my hand cannons and scouts aren't going to be hitting like a wet noodle anymore. Bungie then talks about PvP a little bit, saying that they're in the midst of balancing special ammo economy, and now they're going to be sharing more details as time goes on. And then they talk about how special grenade launchers in PvP are pretty overpowered right now, and they do want to tune those in an upcoming update. Now, let's go ahead and talk about some major buffs and reworks coming to exotic armor come Season 15, and we have a lot of juicy information in here, so let's waste no time. First up, Bungie had a lot to say about super regen exotics, and a lot of these are going to be getting reworked. Starting with Shards of Galanor, they increased the amount of super granted per hit, but the total super regain is now going to be capped at 50%. Ursa's, Phoenix Protocol, and Storm Dancers are all going to receive this nerf of capping the super energy out of 50%, so be wary of the next time you use them, especially when trying to chain Ursa supers together in GMs for example. Geomags are also getting hit with a nerf, as they'll no longer top off your super by sprinting. I'm kinda sad that this affects PvE as well as PvP, but it is what it is. Next up, we got some changes to Warlock exotics in general. We're going to be seeing changes like Verity's Brow, giving you more grenade damage than before, but at the expense of needing a weapon kill that matches your subclass, and not just an energy weapon in general as before. The Stag is also going to be giving you some reduced damage to allies while they're in your rifts, and this is going to be 25% in PvE and 15% in PvP. Finally, for the Warlocks, Prometheum Spur is going to have the added functionality in the form of solar weapon kills, giving class ability energy while in a rift. And when your energy is full, solar weapon kills consume that energy and spawn a healing, empowering rift on your target's location. Now moving on to Hunters, we got plenty more changes. The Bombardiers will now drop bombs that have secondary effects depending on the subclass, as you can see at the top. Graviton Forfeit will now increase your invisibility duration, while also increasing recovery and reload speed, and you'll also get melee regen on top of this when near enemies. Lastly, Lucky Pants will now intrinsically auto-load hand cannons when stowed, and it'll also increase the damage of your first shot when using a kinetic hand cannon or an energy one that matches your subclass. Lastly, we have the Titans, and they're going to be getting changes to 2 exotics in particular. We have the Precious Scars, which will now give a burst of healing and extra recovery when killing an enemy with a weapon that matches your subclass. And finally, Icefall Mantle, which will no longer have a slower class ability recharge. For the last talking point of the video, and man, it took us a while to get here, of course I want to mention Transmog, as Bungie's taken steps into further improving upon their, well, mess of a Transmog system. Bungie's actually going to be removing Synthstrand as a whole from the Transmog system and replacing it with just buying bounties with 10,000 Glimmer instead, both giving a reason to use Glimmer and reducing how awful the grind for Synthstrand was by just yeeting it out of the game, which is a huge win in my books and will help people with less time in the day be able to transmog their armor pieces much easier compared to how it is now. They then end off by saying that they're still monitoring feedback on Transmog, and they may be making future improvements as time goes on. But guys, that is it for the video. My god, this was a long one. It took me so long to get all this information together and to write the script and everything in between. I know you guys do like these longer videos though, so I definitely don't have an issue with putting them out. Of course, in today's video, we didn't cover every single last detail known to man about this upcoming season, but I tried to make this video the definitive one-stop shop for pretty much all the information that you're gonna need whenever it comes to getting ready for Season 15. Of course, we will be having another TWAB coming up in the next like 5 days or so, and that's gonna be going over some weapons in particular, some weapon balancing, and kind of getting a bit more specific probably with things like machine guns and the fusion rifle rework and everything like that. But of course, you know, this is basically going to have all the information aside from that TWAB. I wanted to get it out, you know, at least a week and a half before the new season starts, so you guys can go ahead and get a heads up as to, you know, everything that's going to be coming in Season 15. But guys, that is pretty much it for the video. This time, I want you guys to comment, you know what I want you to comment? I want you guys to comment peanut. Whether it's the word peanut or the peanut emoji, a peanut is a peanut at the end of the day. And I definitely appreciate you guys watching all the way through and making it to the end of the video. As always, I just got to give my thanks to every single one of you guys that support me here on the channel. Of course, this video right here, I don't really expect it to do as well as my other videos. It's definitely a little bit different from what I normally post here on the channel, but I hope you guys did enjoy it nonetheless. And for those of you guys that didn't make it to this point in the video, I really appreciate your support, and I really just appreciate all of you guys in general. I can't wait to see what we do whenever Season 15 launches and how far we take this channel and this community as a whole. But guys, thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it, and I'll see you all next time.